Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Mind Your Mental podcast. Once again, I am Dr. Raquel Martin, licensed clinical psychologist, professor, scientist, and today I have Amber Wallin. Now, I will state that I'm biased because I love everything about her. So we're just going to chat about motherhood, and she's an amazing entrepreneur and she's so creative. That's how I came across her social media. So everyone, welcome Miss Amber Wallin.
Yes.
I have sound effects, but I can
Thank
never
you.
find them.
I got on stage for a show the other day. I was like, thank you, Amsterdam. I was like, thank y'all for letting me say that, because I probably won't ever get to say it for real. But, you know.
I think you will. I think your live shows are amazing. Like, I even just seeing the artistry. I love that you show the behind the scenes aspect of it. Like, you're an artist. So I became introduced to Amber with her social media. She sings to plants. Mm-hmm. And she sings, like she can actually sing, but she sings to the plants. And every single time, it was when I was came home with my second baby, which was exhausting. And your social media was always just like a moment of like, I knew I was going to be chuckling, or I knew I could just like have a laugh when I went to your social media. So one, thank you for that, because
you're very welcome.
Is a lot.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Postpartum is a scam. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people, because even when I try to explain the content to people, I'm like, it's just a hodgepodge of different, like what I felt like doing that day is what is happening in the video. There is no through line. There's some recurring characters and co-stars and guest stars, but whatever I get inspired by is what is going to be the video for sure.
Yeah, I always feel the inspiration. And when I was looking into content creation, and I remember someone stating, like, you know, if you're trying to actually do this as a job, what do people like see on your grid? Like, how are you pitching yourself to different organizations? And when I looked at yours, I'm like, oh, this is easily pitchable. Like, you can easily be like, oh yeah, I can do, if I look at this, she can advertise for like mom stuff, for food, for anything that you wanted to actually throw comedy in and bring people in. I feel like anybody would come to you for, because I can see you being able to sell any product, because you're an artist. Like you do it well. Like I saw one thing for hot sauce, and then I saw one thing crunchy chicken at one point, but then and it's just like you just need someone who's just an artist.
The gas station chicken ad during Black History Month. Yes. That wasn't my finest moment. The check cleared. But I remember on my way to posting it, I was like, what kind of backlash is this fried chicken video about to get me right now? But
did you get any?
None. I tried to write it very specifically so it wasn't just like, I have another friend of mine who's a creator. We talk all the time. And she was in here with me when I was writing the script for the fried chicken. And she was like, you selling a 2-piece combo? I was like, no, I convinced them to let me sell the chicken sandwich. That's a little less Black. You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's a little less Black stereotype. You know what
I'm saying? Avocado on it. It's California.
Yeah, something like that, because I just couldn't do like hand to drum with grease everywhere. You know, we all have a line. You know what I'm saying?
There has to be a line. Yeah.
There has to be a line somewhere. But yeah, I like to do just a little bit of everything. So I'm a big comedy girl to start.
Yeah.
I started doing comedy in Chicago. So I was a big sketch girl, improv girl, a little bit of stand-up as well. And then when the pandemic happened, I got laid off from the comedy club. I was understudying this show there. And 3 hours into the pandemic, I got laid off from the comedy club. So I remember thinking like, oh, maybe I'll just make some more videos at home. I'd always made some video content. Yeah. But I was like, now I have the time to fully invest in these 24-hour stories that used to just disappear. Now I get to like maybe put them somewhere. And that's how we found each other.
Yeah, because I love your stuff. Do you have any tips for people who are trying to do something similar, like unify their message or build their brand in a way that is appealing in the first place. Because I think my stuff is, I don't really post with a purpose. If a company
Mm-hmm.
wants to work with me, my grade could be a lot better. But I feel like yours is just streamlined where you could easily tell a story with any product or thing like that. How do you get to a point where you're able to do that? Like, what are tips that you make it a point to include in, not tips, but like, do you have guidelines when you post your content? Like, what's the
Mm-hmm.
message or what are the tips or any of that?
The best thing I would recommend for people who are just starting is don't overthink it. Like whatever you're
Mm,
already doing, it's the monotony, mundane things that you do that you think aren't interesting. That if you
yeah.
record yourself doing those, people love those. So I would always recommend just like don't like people come to me all the time and they're like, I want to start making content, but I don't know where to start. And I was like, okay, well, what did you do today? They're like, well, I went to my favorite coffee shop and I got my regular coffee. I was like, well, what's your regular coffee? Like just whatever you're already doing,
Yeah.
just share that story and share why that's your regular coffee shop and share why that's your regular coffee order. Like, cause all of those have little stories behind them. I think the best way to describe what I do is just storytelling, comedic storytelling. And so when people are trying to do this, they're like, well, I got to hop on trends and I got to know like the viral sounds. And I'm like, just, just talk to people and just do
Yeah.
what you're already doing. Like I have a cousin who makes a lot of content right now. I was like, this is so nice. I haven't heard your voice in a single video. And that's what people
Mm,
fall in love with because people hate the sound of their own voice. But there's so much like the texture of your voice is the story too. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's a high pitch or whether you're like you got a little southern drawl to it, like that's a story in and of itself. So I always tell people like the big two would be just record what you're already doing. If you did your laundry today, just record that, and then just put some sort of vocal commentary where you tell a story to people in 30 seconds and 60 seconds. We just you've been binging the Who the F Did I Marry series.
I haven't, and I'm the only one because everyone's talking about
You're
the
the
who
only
the
one.
f did I.
You're the only
I
one.
am. It's like
Yes.
70 parts. How do people have
Well,
time for
the
these
therapist in
things?
you is going would
I
watch
know,
it
and
and
you
be
know
like,
what? Mm-mm.
yo,
No, that's why I'm staying away from it
mm-hmm.
because I think people want like a. So what do clinicians have to say? Not a
Yes.
darn thing. You're not about to give
They
me.
want your
You're
take.
not
They
about to
want your
give
take
me.
because it's your professional opinion, and people like that. Like, okay, I'm reneging on my answer a little bit. I once looked up. I looked up what makes a good content creator,
You said
and
renege in February, by the way. Continue.
I did renege. It's actually supposed to be pronounced renege, right? Black people, we just pronounce it as renege for black
Between the
people.
chicken and renege, my God,
I
Amber.
know that's two strikes.
That's two
Okay,
strikes. Don't make it a
hold me accountable
third.
to the third. Hold me accountable to the third. But what makes a good content creator is I read three things. Either
Mm-hmm.
you inspire people, you educate people, or you entertain people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can find a way to do all three, that's why people love you, right? Because
Oh,
you're inspiring us to be better in our conversations and be kinder to each other. It's
yeah.
entertaining and you have the expertise, you know? So that like that melee of all that, like that, what am I doing? A stew. I'm cooking now.
We mean
I
a
never
stir
cook.
fry.
Yes, that's a perfect blend of why people love what you do. You know what I mean? That's my dog.
Thank you. Oh yeah, no, I know. I also think I think one of the reasons why I enjoy watching her stuff too is because we get to one. So Amber, she married to Ben. Ben, even okay. So tone is a very good point because I only hear Ben in your the way
Right,
like you say
right.
his name, and I bet you people call him Ben the same exact way because we're so
Yes,
used to
they do
hearing it
now.
said that way. They do,
Yes,
right?
they come up to even Ben's little cousins will come up to him and be like, Ben, like they do
Ben.
that now, which is so funny because even that, right? I didn't even realize I was doing that until the
Yep.
internet was like, do y'all hear this pronunciation? And then like the fanfic of the comment section basically respelled his name, and so now even when we
BEYN.
go play, right? So even we've been in person with things and like people have spelled it incorrectly. And I'm like, that's just like the internet spelling of it, which is so funny.
Yeah, so her husband Ben and her
I
daughter
mean,
Wild, and I like watching that process too because my youngest is close to Wild's age.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so fun seeing someone going through the same moments and me just being like, okay, so it's not me, right? Like,
It's
it's
not
not
just you.
me. Anyone dealing with this is just like, okay, just eat the food. Do you have to
Just
break down
eat
every
it.
time we leave? This was my food. Why are we here again? How are
Why are
you
we?
eating
Oh my
again
gosh.
and yet still never eating? What's happening? Why can't I
What's
comb your hair?
happening?
What's going on?
They like you can't even just feed them. They want to pick out which blueberry they're eating, take a bite, then put it back on your plate. Like you're just
Yeah.
like I love when my child is just like done with something and then she's just handing it off. Like I am her personal assistant. Like she'll just look for me to be like, I can't just put this on the floor or the table. Like you need to take it from my hand.
And it's understood that like they don't even look like he will literally he just puts his hand out and he just
Takes it out.
knows that like, oh, she'll be here shortly. She must be having
Yeah,
a
yeah.
break or
And I
something.
will
Who
be.
said she could have a break? And I will be, because or you gonna throw it on the
She needs a little
floor.
bell at this point. Yeah, because she's just like Garçon. Yeah. She's wonderful. She's fine.
She's amazing. I think that's one of the things I also appreciate with your content is like sharing your family with us. And I think when I was watching on the beginning, I don't know if this is his character, but Ben seems to be more into it now in terms of you guys moved to you guys were in Chicago, right?
We were in Chicago for 10 years
10
separately.
years.
I guess him and I lived and dated there together for about 7 years. And then we moved here.
And then you moved and you're in LA.
Mm-hmm. We're in LA now. Yep.
You're in LA. And I feel like the one thing I noticed is you've made this, like, in my opinion, like amazing transformation into, we talked about this before, the entrepreneurship role when you went into, you went all in when it came to, you guys are doing the live show, podcast, merch. I'm sure you always see me wearing y'all's, it's so comfy.
I so appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You have a hoodie that's so comfy because I wear a lot of hoodies. So I'm like, oh, this is top tier. The lining on the inside is really cozy. I don't know what it is, but it's more than just cotton. It's just very comfy. So I wear it all the time.
Yay. Okay, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the merch.
Yes. Yes. How did you feel comfortable pivoting into those roles? Because honestly, at one point I thought you had like a whole team.
Right. Like I'm slowly building a team, but I mean a team of like 1 or 2 people right now. Yeah. But I am slowly building a team. I just got to a point where so I was a high school teacher for 5 years. And I wasn't that great of a teacher. But now the kids were entertained. Were they learning anything was the issue, right? But I wasn't that great of a teacher, but what was required of us at the beginning of every school year is a long-term plan. For those educators out there, you're an educator. I'm not sure, like at the collegiate level, what you have to provide, the administration or whatever. But in high school, you have to provide like month to month, day to day, what will you be teaching these children? What geometric standards and mathematical standards are you teaching them? So then once I fully transitioned to being a comedian, it was really easy for me to long-term plan how I wanted to run my business. I would look at analytics and it would say like, okay, most of your users watch your videos before they go to work and then 5 p.m. when they get off work. So then I would say like, okay, on a weekly schedule, I need to post 2 TikToks a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. So then it was easy for me to sort of like long-term plan that. And that's what's helped me to be consistent. Of course, some things fall off, even like my plant singing series, I want to bring that back. You think when you have a child, everything's going to be like back to normal, but you're like, well, the day I do this thing is now the day we go to swim lessons. So how am I going to navigate? So you just make some sacrifices here and there. But in general, I try to make it look effortless, but there's a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of trackers and a lot of how did this content perform versus that content behind the scenes. So I really like to nerd out on the analytics and like what I call like a project plan when I decide to do something.
Okay, so when people are trying to take it more seriously, it's also important to look at analytics.
Oh, absolutely.
Be more organized in that realm. And you mentioned like even with the analytics, even just breaking it down to like when people are watching the videos, I don't even know when people watch my stuff. I don't even know when people watch my stuff.
What do
No.
you mean? You never just looked at like the peak times of when for most of or peak cities? So even planning the live tour, again, our podcast, we rebranded a podcast in June. For those of you listening, we rebranded our podcast Fly on the Wallin in June of 2023. And even then, when I rebranded it, because for 2 years we ran a Black sci-fi and fantasy podcast. And
Yes,
while we
I loved
did
it.
love it a
About
lot, the
books.
sci-fi side, while we did love it a lot, I love feedback, right? Because I don't have any coworkers. So I'm
Mhm.
always reaching out to people who are smarter than me. So I reached out to this lady at Wondery. Our podcast is not
Oh,
sponsored by
cool.
Wondery, but she was like, "I'll take a meeting with you and give you some advice." And so I took a meeting with her. I'll take a meeting. Like, that's great. I took a meeting with her and she was like, "What I'm seeing on your social media page is family and funny and shenanigans and viral moments. And that's not translating to this science fiction and fantasy podcast."
Mm.
And I was explaining to her, I was like, well, on the podcast, we talk about relationship stuff and stuff. We just talk about it with the characters and then how it, the text to self. And she was like, why don't you name the podcast something else? Because sci-fi might take people out of, like if you don't like sci-fi, you're not going to go watch this just because you love me. So she's like, make it more a you and him show and make it like, if you're doing a parenting video, why wouldn't you do a parenting segment? And she was like, that's all the advice I should give. So we rebranded it this past summer. So I'm really big on just in the way that you would in a regular 9 to 5. It's like, I don't get a quarterly evaluation from anybody. So I
Yeah.
love taking a meeting on, hey, how can I improve? Like, here's where my business is struggling right now. Podcast listens. How can I make that better? And then when my agent was like, hey, we want to maybe give y'all a tour. What city should we start with? I use my analytics to be like, okay, I'm popular in New York, Chicago, LA, Atlanta. Let's try to start and see how it goes in those cities first. You know what I mean? Because you can't
Yeah.
just pick Detroit. Like, Detroit's great. We love Detroit. But per my analytics, I don't have a big fan base there. So would it be
Yeah.
worth it to fly me, fly the baby, fly Ben, fly a production member, and the turnout might not be great,
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to think about it as much as we can and not too corporate because, it's still me, but
Yeah.
like what are the resources that we have that we can use? Because the analytics are free. You got to look at your analytics.
Listen, when my business partner / producers looks at this, he's probably gonna roll his eyes because I could do a better job of posting with a purpose, but I genuinely feel as though I fell into social media. I genuinely just got on to provide another aspect of mental health stuff that
Of
looks like
course.
me and people breaking it down more simple because I just got this thing where people, I always say, you using $20 words, you stop. Like
Yes.
this is supposed to be really simple concepts that's supposed to help people. And then I just had to happen to like get bigger. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Okay.
this is like a
Yes.
thing.
Because you
But like
saw the need and you filled the need.
I just saw
You
the
educated,
need.
you entertained, and you inspired. So like you check all the boxes of what makes we need more people like you. Because some people wake up to be like, okay, what am I gonna create today? It's like,
Oh yeah.
you have the content already, which is
Yeah, it's
great.
just
Like
in my
your
brain.
expert opinion.
Yeah,
Right.
lately I've just been like looking at videos and being like, "Oh, there's actually a psych concept behind this. Let me show you. Let me tell you this psych
Right.
concept behind
And we
this." And you
can't
could
get
just,
that anywhere else. Like,
yeah,
where could we possibly get that? You can even get laughs somewhere else, but you can't really hear it
yeah,
from a therapist that you're not paying to hear it from. So what you're
yeah.
doing is a huge service to people. Like,
Man,
absolutely.
this is. I mean, if we ended right now, I think I would be just excited about what we got. It's like, oh my goodness, I got to. Hey everyone, just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast. It is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin, PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. Hope to see you there.